Hi friends, today we are going to see the chapter Plant Kingdom, and this video will cover part 4 for us. People, those who haven't gone through the earlier parts, please kindly have a look so that this will help you in the continuity with the chapter. So let's begin with the first question here. Let's read the first question. Which one of the following is true about bryophytes? So this question was asked in the year 1999. So, what do you know about bryophytes? Any idea? Before we go directly into the solution, we will discuss what is bryophytes first. There are certain characteristics that will differentiate bryophytes from the other families of the plant kingdom. Now, for example, bryophytes resemble many features of algae. I think many of you will know about this. They will resemble many features in relation with an algae. But the only difference is that a bryophyte has sex organs which are multicellular. They do not have any vascular tissues. Another thing that you have to note here is they are non-vascular. Okay, they are non-vascular. What do you mean by vascules? Every plant, most of the plants are vasculars. They do have vascules. Vascules are the xylem and the phloem that is present in the plant. So this bryophyte does not contain any vascules, no xylem or phloem. The sex organs are said to be multicellular. The argonium is a flask-shaped system that is present in bryophytes. Of course, they are thalloid. Okay, so as I already mentioned, one of the characteristics, they have argonia. Yes, they have. They are thalloid. Yes, they have plant. That is a plant, and it has leaf, stem, and other root system also. Okay, so another feature about bryophytes, though it is a plant, it will always contain a chloroplast also. So all the sentences, all the options given here are right. Okay, so what are bryophytes? They are non-vascular plants with sex organs to be multicellular. The argonium is flask shaped, and they are thalloid. They are differentiated into root, roots, and stems and leaves. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is all of these. Option D is a right answer. Okay, to your right side you can see the description there. Last they have given you an explanation. They bear chloroplast. Of course, all plants, everything which is photosynthetic, autotrophic, they will possess a chloroplast in it. Okay, now let's move to the next question. Read this question here. Bryophytes are dependent on water because. This question was asked in the year 1998. Okay, why is that bryophytes dependent on water? Okay, same as I already mentioned, bryophytes do not grow as tall plants. They look like surface plants. That is why they resemble more like an algae. Okay, they are mostly adhered to the surface bound region, and they do not grow tall. So here they are not flower bearing or fruit bearing, nothing of that sort. So they need some kind of source which would help them get their generations going. So for that they need some source. That source is given by water. Water is the main source of reproduction part of their life cycle. So here if you see, they have given you different options here. Look at the first option. Water is essential for fertilization for their homosporous nature. See, water does not required for fertilization. Okay, water is required for the delivery. So fertilization doesn't mean the answer here. Water is essential for their vegetative propagation. No. Look at option C. The sperms can easily reach up to the egg in the argonium. Last option, argonium has to remain filled with the water for fertilization. So out of the 4 options given here, the correct answer is option C. So here to your description part, to the solution part, you have something called as dehiscence. What do you mean by that? That is called as, see, the common meaning of dehiscence is splitting. Splitting, or you can call it as bursting. Okay, you can call any of this. The common meaning is that any wound or any pod gets bursted and whatever's inside the fluid or the germs inside will get moved from the wound. It will get bursted and it will travel to the surface. It is found everywhere in the surface now. So this dehiscence, if you see, as I already mentioned, why are they dependent on water? Once this dehiscence happens, the sperms will get dispersed in the water and it will easily reach the eggs, and it will get fertilized and it will reproduce. Okay, so here the option C, if you look at option C, it clearly explains you. The sperms can easily reach up to egg in the argonium. So this water is a medium for it to reach the egg and undergo reproduction. Okay, now you understand. So the correct answer to this question is option C. Now let's move to the next question here. Read the question here. Bryophytes can be separated from algae because they... So what are they dependent on? Okay, so this question was asked in the year 1997. Okay, now coming to the solution. As I already mentioned, there are few features which can still differentiate between bryophytes and algae. See, if you look at bryophytes and algae, the similarity is high. Okay, because like algae, they are also not non-flowering. They are non-flowering. They are non-vascular, non-fruit bearing, everything. They are highly resemblance of algae. So what is that one feature which can separate or which can differentiate between a bryophyte and algae is that? The correct answer to this question is thalloid forms. Of course, both have thalloids. They have no conducting tissue. Of course, all that is there in algae and bryophytes. Option D, contain chloroplast nacelles. That is also there in both. So this particular feature, argonia or argonium, they are the female sex organ of a plant. So this feature is not present in algae, and this will easily differentiate between a bryophyte and algae. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option C. Okay, as I already said, argonium is the female sex organ which is flask shaped, okay, of bryophytes, while algae will have non-jacketed sex organ. Okay, so this feature will differentiate between bryophyte and algae. Okay, to your right side you can see the picture of bryophytes. This is how they will be adhered to the surface or to the ground. Okay, the correct answer is option C. Fine, now let's move to the next question. Look at this question here. It's once again we're going to talk about elaters. Okay, I think we already discussed about elaters in the previous parts, so I think this should be easier for you to answer. So read this question here. In which one of these the elaters are present along with mature spores in the capsule to help in spore dispersal? Okay, so what are elaters? You should know what are elaters, right? People, those who have gone through the earlier parts will be able to answer now. So elaters are responsible for spore dissemination. Okay, elater is an elongated, spirally thickened, water attracting cell in the capsule of the liverwort, and it is responsible to assist the spore dispersal. Okay, and this feature, as we already discussed in the earlier parts, it is found in Mercantia. Now who is this Mercantia? What is this Mercantia actually? This is a group of liverwort. Okay, the Mercantia shows differentiation into two layers. Okay, it has two layers. What are the two layers? Can anybody tell it? It has two layers. One is the upper layer and the lower layer. The upper layer will have the photosynthetic layer and the lower layer will be the storage layer. Okay, so you can see the diagram here. Mercantia species is a male and this is the female here. So you can just see the differences. Male, of course, you'll have argoniospore, and female you'll have argoniospore, and anthridium is found in male. So this is how you will differentiate between a male and a female. So as I already discussed, elaters are responsible for spore dissemination. So I talked about two layers here, right? The upper layer is the photosynthetic layer. Okay, photosynthetic layer. while the lower is the storage layer. Okay, so these are the unique features of Mercantia. So it's one among the liverwort. Therefore, the correct answer is option B, Mercantia. Okay, now let's move to the next question. This is once again a simple question. The plant body of moss, they've given an example. It's maybe a moss, a funaria, is dash. Okay, now when I talk about the plant body of moss, both the things are found. For example, sporophyte and gametophyte, both are found in it. But in this, what you have to differentiate is which one is predominant, either the sporophyte or the gametophyte. I already gave you a clue. The plant body of moss will consist of both. Okay, it will have sporophyte and the gametophyte. But out of this, which one is the predominant one? Which one is dependent and which one is the dominant one? So the correct answer here is option D, because gametophyte dominates while the sporophyte will be dependent upon the gametophyte. It will be totally dependent on gametophyte for it to happen. Only after the completion of gametophyte, the next sporophyte will happen. So here the correct answer goes to option D, predominantly gametophyte with sporophyte. So in the description part also you can vary, right? The gametophytic generation represents a dominant phase in the life cycle of bryophytes. Okay, the sporophyte phase is dependent on the gametophyte. Only when gametophyte is completed, the sporophyte can take into action. So now you understand it will consist of both, but you have to clearly understand which one dominates. Okay, now let's move to the next question here. So look at this question here, was asked in the year 1994. Unique features of bryophytes is that they dash. So as we already know, of course, bryophytes, they lack vascular tissues. We all know that. But they have roots, so this cannot be the answer. They have sporophyte attached to the gametophyte. I think this we saw in the previous slide. Which one dominates and which one is dependent, right? So the life cycle of bryophytes, if you see, the dominant phase is the gametophyte phase, while the saprophyte is dependent upon the gametophyte. So the unique feature of bryophyte is that they have a sporophyte attached to the gametophyte. Now you get the answer. Okay, so what are bryophytes? We all know they are non-vascular, their sex organs are multicellular, they do have an arconium which is flask shaped, and that what helps in their reproduction, and they are thalloid. Okay, so these are some of the characteristics of bryophytes. So here, if you see in the description part, they have mentioned something called sporophyte remains attached to the gametophyte and produces spores. Already it is understood, sporophyte will produce spores. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is option B. Okay, now let's move to the next question here. Look at this question here. Proteinema occurs in the life cycle of dash. So this question was asked twice in the year 1990 and 93. Okay, so what is proteinema? You should know that, right? Proteinema is a thread-like chain of cells. So how can you describe proteinema? They are thread-like chain of cells. Okay, they are thread-like chain of cells that forms the earliest stage of the life cycle of mosses. Okay, so out of the 4 options given here, you should identify which one belongs to mosses. A proteinema is produced when a moss or a liverwort spore germinates. Okay, the correct answer to this question is funaria. As we already saw in the earlier slides, in the question they have mentioned about the unique feature of moss. They mentioned funaria in the bracket, right? So funaria is an example of moss or a liverwort. So the correct answer to this question is option B, funaria. Okay, so what is proteinema? They are thread-like chain of cells that forms the earliest stage of the life cycle of mosses. So this stage is either present in liverworts or mosses. The correct answer to this question is funaria. Okay, now let's move to the next question. This is a very simple question here. Bryophytes are amphibians because this question was asked in the year 1991. Okay, to your right side you can see it's moreover a picture which tells you about the habit and the habitat of bryophytes. So if you look at the first point there, bryophytes are among the simplest of the terrestrial plants, but they require water to hold on to the substratum. So they require some moisture. Second point, they lack the complex tissue system. They do not have any vascular tissues. Most of them are 2 to 5 centimeter tall, and others are less than 10 centimeter long. So as I already said, they are mostly adhered to the surface of the ground of the land. They do not grow much taller or much broader. Commonly grown in damp, humid and shaded localities, and they're widely distributed throughout the world. Right, I think you all can understand this. But here is the question is, bryophytes are amphibians because we already discussed a lot about this in the earlier slides. They require water for the transmission of the sperms. The sperms, in order to get itself attached to the female, to the female sex organ, they need water which will act as a medium to get this sperm traveled along the water, and it will reach the female sex, that is the eggs. Okay, so why do they require that water? If you see, why are they called the amphibians? Look at the first option here. They require a layer of water for carrying out sexual reproduction. Yes. They occur in damp places. Yes. They are mostly aquatic. Yes. So what is the correct answer here? The correct answer is option A. See, bryophytes, they grow in damp areas. All that is essential thing. All that is the characteristic of the bryophyte. But why is that they're called exclusively as amphibians is they require a source, a medium for them to get their sperms transferred to the eggs. So that fertilization will only occur when there is water. Okay, that is why they are called as amphibians. So bryophytes are amphibians because they complete their vegetative phase on land, but for them to complete that reproductive stage, they require that water. Okay, so to the right side you can clearly see the last point. They are called the amphibians of the plant kingdom because they can live in soil. They are growing over the soil. They need water to grow. They are moreover like a plant. But still there is something missing. For them, they do not bear any fruits, nor flowers, no spores, nothing. They do not even have any vascular tissues. So for them to continue for generations, God gave them a way for them to pave a medium which will help their reproduction and generations to continue. So that is why bryophytes are called the amphibians of the plant kingdom. Now let's move to the next question here. This question was asked in the year 1990. Apophysis in the capsule of Funaria. Okay, fine. What do you mean by apophysis? Can anybody tell me? Have you ever heard about it? Apophysis in the capsule of Funaria. Okay, so here in the solution part you can see the description. The first one, capsule of Funaria is differentiated into three things. Okay, the first one, if you see, is the operculum, which is the upper part. Can you differentiate here now? See, operculum is the upper part and it forms the lid. Okay, theca, which forms the middle part, is called the fertile part. And what is this apophysis? It is found in the capsule of Funaria. Yes, that is true, but that is called the lower part, and that is responsible for photosynthesis. So now you get the answer. The correct answer to this question is lower part. So the Funaria capsule is divided into three parts: operculum, theca and apophysis. Apophysis is the lower part. Therefore the correct answer to this question is option A. Now let's move to the next question here. Moss peristome takes part in dash. So this question was again asked in year 1990. So you're given four options here. Right? So what do you mean by moss peristome? Moss peristome takes part in the fringe of small projections around the mouth of the capsule of mosses and certain fungi also. Okay, peristome, if you see, it is a specialized structure in the sporangium that allows for gradual spore discharge. So what is the activity of this? Spore discharge. Okay, spore discharge. Instead of releasing them all at once, they will release in intervals. Okay, For example, they have given you an example here. Funaria is an example of moss, right? So it will have about 32 volts in there, 32 in 2 volts it seems. So I will explain you in detail. So the correct answer to this question is, so as I already said, it is responsible for spore discharge. So the correct answer is spore dispersal. So now you understand what is peristome. It will take part in the fringe of small projections, okay, that is around the mouth of the capsule of mosses. So here if you see, peristome are teeth like projections. One, they also help in protection, okay, it also helps in protection. So for example, they have given you funaria. It has about 32 teeth it seems. It has 2 volts, and in that it has been divided into 16. Now you understand. So what is peristome? It is a specialized structure in the sporangium that allows the gradual spore discharge. It does not happen all of a once. It disperses the spores at intervals. So the correct answer is option A. Now let's move to the next question here. Sperms of both Funaria and Pteris were released together near the argonia of Pteris. Only its sperms enter the argonia. So what does this statement tell you? So this question was asked in the year 1989. So here they have given 4 options here. Pteris argonia repel Funaria sperms. Funaria sperms get killed by Pteris. No, this is not the answer. These 2 are not the answer. The correct answer to this question is Pteris argonia release chemicals to attract the sperms. Say, when I talk about sex organs in plants, the female sex organ is called as argonium and the male sex organ is called as antheridium. Okay, with the help of this you differentiate the plants, saying that this is male and this is female. Now this argonia of a particular species will recognize the anthrazoids, that is the sperms of the same species, through the release of chemical. As we already discussed in the earlier slides, where bryophytes use water as their source to get their sperms traveled and it will reach the eggs. Now you can ask me a question. There might be many plants which disperse or which use water as a source or a medium to get their sperms dispersed and travel and it will reach the egg. But how will the plant recognize which sperm belongs to which, right? So imagine if there is no signal or any kind of trigger or any kind of method to identify this sperm belongs to the family, then there will be a lot of cross-pollination. So here if you see, the correct chemical, that chemical which is dispersed along with the sperm when it is transferred, that chemical will help the plant to identify whether this sperm belongs to them or not. Okay, so here the correct answer is option D. Pteris argonia release a chemical to attract the sperms. That chemical will automatically tell you that this is something for us and it will easily attract the sperms towards it. So therefore the correct answer is option D. Okay, now you understand why there is a release of chemical. Okay, now let's move to the next question. Okay, with this we complete with this we complete the last question of part 4. I think it was all interesting for you and I hope it was understood also. Okay, we all will meet in the next part. Okay, please do take a look at the other parts so that you will understand and it will be easy for you during your exams. So with this we complete part 4. Let's all meet in the next part. Okay, thank you.